Trump administration security officials held emergency meetings all through the weekend in the White House Situation Room. They're assessing the cybersecurity threat, and it's led by White House Homeland Security Advisor Thomas Bossert, who joins us now. Mr. Bossert, thank you for joining us this morning. Just bring us up to speed right now. What's the latest on the state of the attack? How worried should everyone watching be as they head to work this morning?
Thank you, George, for having me. Good morning. I think people heading to work this morning should be thinking about this as an attack that, for right now, we've got under control, but as an attack that represents an extremely serious threat, not just criminal threat, but as this criminal threat has turned into something that has affected hospitals in the United Kingdom and elsewhere, is something that might morph into a more difficult and threatening matter. I think.
Excuse me, spreading through Asia overnight. You don't expect it to spread to the United States today?
So as that malware attack manifested initially, it was an attack that we had a patch for. And kudos to Microsoft for having released that patch in 2014, or I'm sorry, March of this year, and for having worked with us since 2014 to develop that process. However, that patch is not installed in all places, as we've seen. So to those who have not patched, to those who have not updated their software, it's imperative that you do so to get through this and to continue to get through it as the inevitable morphing and variants of this attack will change over the week. You
mentioned Microsoft. The president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, is calling this a wake-up call and blaming a hacking tool stolen from the government's national security agency. Is he right?
He is absolutely right that this is an urgent call for collective action. We need people at every level to engage in their network hygiene, which is not necessarily the nicest thing to always talk about. And we also need government action, collective action abroad and with the United States to address this type of attack.
He's also saying these national security, these tools that the governments create, these vulnerabilities they create, are part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, I think regardless of the provenance of the exploit here used in this vulnerability, what's culpable and who is culpable are the criminals that distributed it and the criminals that weaponized it, added additional details to it, and turned this into something that is holding ransom data but also putting at risk lives in hospitals.
You're saying criminals. What more do we know about who was behind this attack, and have we ruled out that this is a state action?
We've not ruled that out, but attribution is always a little difficult here. One of the reasons I suggest criminality right now is that we're seeing an attempt to hold this data for ransom. That suggests an intent to try to develop money. That could be something that we change in our philosophy over the weeks.
What do you say to a hospital that gets a ransomware like this in an emergency situation? Should they pay it?
Well, the U.S. government doesn't make a recommendation on paying ransom. I would provide a strong caution. You're dealing with people who are obviously not scrupulous, so making a payment does not mean you're going to get your data back.
Finally, what's the most important thing we can do to protect ourselves?
Today, you need to install your patches, you need to enable automated patching on your systems and networks, and you need to update your software. And then, George, secondly, I would say we're not yet out of the woods. We have an additional concern that copycats, as we've seen in the past, will provide variants to this tool and continue to come after us.
Thomas Bossert, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.
So some caution there, but also encouraging news that they think they have the initial attack under control.
Yeah, but don't know. Monday morning, a lot of people are going to be logging on for the first time.